Alright everyone, as I'm recording this, we're getting towards the end of the year, and that's going to bring us to our episode number 4 this week. We're going to December of 1998, so make sure you finish up sending all your instant messages on AOL and we'll get to the podcast.
Tales from the 90's never die. In our hearts they testify. VCRs and mixtape spins, where every tale begins. Tales from the crypt, marathons, wrestling wars and morning yawns. Play kickball in the street, man those days can't be beat. Tales from the 90's never die.
Thanks everyone for checking us out here on Tales from the 90's. We're going towards the end of the 90's now, December 1998. Getting towards the last year of the decade, the last year of the millennium. And of course we all know the Y2K stuff, and I'll talk about that later on. First of all, thank you if you joining us now, new I should say, whether you're just checking us out Facebook, YouTube, or listening to us on Spotify. We go back, take a look at the 90's, nostalgic look. We look through pop culture, news, kind of give my own experiences with things. Kind of a little mixture of both. I don't want to get it to be too factual and, you know, just reading off a list of things, but I also don't want to give all my own stuff too, because I'm trying to make this accessible for everybody. And if you didn't live through this time, I hope you learned something today. If you did, I hope you have some fun remembering things. So we're going to look back at December 1998. If you checked us out, our first bonus episode dropped last week. It was the top 50 horror movies of all time. Now, of course, that's a list that I put together, my own personal list. I know there's some on Facebook that like to pretend they know the top 100 wrestlers in Indiana when they've only seen 3 promotions. I'm sorry, am I bullying anybody? That's another story. We want to get into all that drama that people cry over. But we're going to get started here this week. Speaking of bonus episodes, hopefully everything goes right. This comes out at like normal, Wednesday, 9 a.m. If not, though, I don't know if the bonus episode will air before this, but anyway, I'm planning on November 7th to have a bonus episode. It's going to be one that's already recorded, but just finished editing and stuff. It's childhood toys. It's actually with me and my wife. We're sitting outside now. I apologize for the audio quality. Me making videos for years, you figure I should know. From seeing wrestlers sending in promos to me doing videos outside where you can't hear nothing because of the wind, although some of them make a top 100 list. Anyway, sorry. Back to what I was talking about. There is a little bit of time, there's a few times where the wind kind of cuts out a little bit of what we're saying. Hopefully it's not distracting. I apologize if it is. I definitely won't be doing another outside one. Just trying to make, it was a nice day, I was trying to make it just something different. But anyways, we're going to be talking about the toys that we played with in childhood from like the 80s and 90s, and toys that even came out before then. But yeah, on to this episode. Again, we look back at different things that have gone through this month of December 1998. Again, if you're new, we jump around sometimes. We'll be like last week we were in 94 September. This week we are in December of 98. But and I always change the order of things I talk about too, so I don't bore you with, oh, we know it's this time and this time. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling on here. Try not to talk too long or this will be a 2-hour podcast, and trust me, those are not fun to edit. I do not want to do them that long. But we're going to talk about TV shows right now. Of course, TV shows, back then ratings were everything. The number one show on network TV then was ER. Of course, they were in their 5th season by then and really hitting their stride. Cable TV's number one show by the Nielsen ratings was ESPN football. I don't know what game it was. It doesn't have that information. But back then, that was when Monday Night Football was on ABC. So if that tells you anything, ER beat Monday Night Football. But ESPN football was number one on cable. And then in syndication, the number one show at that time was Wheel of Fortune. Of course, everybody knows that show. That and Jeopardy, they were always together. Whatever city you lived in, they were on syndication. I don't know if it was the same everywhere, but ours were on. Wheel of Fortune was on at 7, Jeopardy at 7:30. I don't know if it was the same everywhere, but Wheel of Fortune was the #1 show. I mean, it's an easy, you guess a puzzle. Jeopardy's more intellectual. Like, you can watch the show if you don't know a lot of the questions, but it's more fun to, like, if you play along. And Wheel of Fortune's easier to play along than Jeopardy. I mean, there's a lot of people that can play Jeopardy, but Wheel of Fortune's, I guess more accessible for everybody. It's easier to solve a puzzle than some of those Jeopardy questions are nuts. But some of the shows that debuted in December of '98. Well, I don't know if they debuted in December. It's really not that data, but they debuted that TV season, so maybe it was more like September. But Charmed, that's one I really didn't get into. My wife got me into that one. I watched it in the mid-2000s, watched all 7 episodes, 7 seasons of it. Really good show. It's about these 3 witches, and they, I guess that's what they are. My memory. Sometimes I'll remember things perfectly, sometimes I won't. But, yeah, duh, there were witches that cast spells. Anyway, they did a remake of the show recently. I seen half an episode. I was like, nope. But, yeah, that was one show that I would always see on TV, but I never thought I'd get into until I actually watched it. Another one kind of like that is King of Queens. That debuted around the time. Kevin James, of course, he's hilarious. And his wife Carrie's dad was the same guy that played Frank Costanza in Seinfeld. He is so hilarious. Oh, I can't think of his name right. Jerry Stiller. Ben Stiller's dad. That guy, he could have had a show just of his own and it would have been funny. But, debuted around this time, VIP. This was that cheesy show that was only on, like, I think it was like 2 a.m. where we lived, with Pamela Anderson, and you can guess why it was on at that time of day. And most people were watching it for. It was just women in bikinis running around solving crimes, basically. That was certainly a crazy time. Another one that I didn't watch till later on, and it not only just had 1 season, but it didn't even get to finish the season, was Brimstone. It's about this cop who was sentenced to hell, but he really wasn't bad, so he was told if he brings all the demons that escape back that he can get out of hell. Of course, that never happened because they didn't let the show go on long enough. And another one that I thought started earlier, but started in late '98 was TRL, Total Request Live. Anybody remember that from MTV? I wasn't really watching a lot of it then. I just by '99, 2000 though, I watched that show as much as any other ones. And like I've said before, I'm mostly a country fan. That was this time period is really when I started getting into other music, and I don't really know why, other than maybe it's what people were listening to at school. And I wasn't trying to fit in, but I mean, yeah. But TRL was like a Total Request Live. They do like a top 10. Oh no, a list. Hope nobody got bullied. If you don't get that inside joke, message me. If you do and you're tired of it, I'm sorry. But yeah, and they'd have people. They'd take requests, and they'd have live performances on there. Back when MTV had music. Now MTV is just known as the channel that replays whatever it plays. I don't even know what's on there. But back then, the M stood for music. I guess it still does, but not like they show it. All right, we're gonna move into. Well, there's really nothing to talk about here. I tried to make this a segment, and I guess earlier years in the 90s will have more of this, but Tales from the Crypt. Of course, where I got the name Tales from the 90s. Tales from the Crypt was my all-time favorite show, and nothing was going on at this time. The last season had already happened to Tales from the Crypt, the regular show. Tales from the Crypt Keeper, the cartoon, had 2 seasons, and it was off. They brought it back actually in '99, but right now I don't even think it was in syndication. And of course, the game show Secrets of the Crypt Keeper's Haunted House was over after only 1 season. But a lot of the anthology horror shows, which are my favorite type of shows, were dying out around this time. Of course, you had those. Of course, the original ones like Twilight Zone. They always make a comeback every 20 years, it seems. But yeah, shows like, and for kids, Are You Afraid of the Dark had been off the air and just showing reruns. Goosebumps was only in reruns and syndication. So a lot of the kids' anthology shows. The one that was still going was Outer Limits. This is the 90s version, not the 60s version. But I actually have the DVD set. It's a foreign set, so it's weird because some of the DVDs will play, some won't. It's weird. Like, I don't get if one plays, why shouldn't all the other? But anyway, it was more of a sci-fi type show, but it had a lot of horror elements in it too. And this was still going on. It was a Showtime show, so I didn't really get to see a whole lot of it then. I still, like I said, I got the DVD set. Someday I'm going to show everybody all my collections, because I got some really fascinating collections. I love owning the actual physical media, because with streaming these days, it's wonderful, it's easy to get to, but who knows if they're going to keep it on there. You could be watching something and they take it off and they might not put it on another service, or if they do, you got to pay for that if you don't have it. But like I said, Outer Limits was kind of the last horror anthology of this time. I think they brought Twilight Zone back 2002, I think. But yeah, those type of shows were dying out. Speaking of Outer Limits, though, it kind of gets me into what I want to talk about next. Where I lived in Cincinnati, our closest theme park, it's huge in Cincinnati. I mean, outside of Cincinnati, I'm sure you've probably heard of it too, but Kings Island. At this time when I went, which was the last time I went, which was back, I think I went in 96. I know we're talking about December 98, but it's kind of got me thinking about it. It was owned by Paramount, which owned Outer Limits. So it was Paramount's Kings Island, and a lot of the rides they renamed after Paramount shows. Of course, everybody knows now Paramount Plus, another streaming service, which surprisingly doesn't have Outer Limits on it. But the reason that reminded me of Kings Island is because they had the Outer Limits Flight of Fear. I believe it was in 96. I'll talk about it more when I do an episode on that year, so I can get everything correct. But it was the first like week or two of that ride, so it was 3 or 4 hour line, and it was a roller coaster that went upside down and stuff, but it was completely inside and in the dark, and there was all kinds of things popping out of you. The Crypt Keeper face popped out at one point. But yeah, stood in line for 4 hours, tried a minute and a half, 2 minutes, couldn't have been much more than that ride, and it was over. And I do not like roller coasters, thanks to my experience on the Vortex of that year. Again, I'll get into that another time, but that pretty much got me off roller coasters. I have not been on one since, don't want to get on one. But like I said, we give facts around here, and we give personal stories as well. Leads me into my next one. This is a strange time period. All the times before, I told you about my stepdad, Marky Foe, and all the weird adventures we'd have going to the bar and all the stuff we do on the weekends. Well, it was during this time, I don't have the exact dates down right, but it was during this time, I think it was the summer, maybe the early fall, my mom decided to leave him. I remember that night vividly. I won't get into too much details about it, but let's just say he had a screwdriver and he had me. And my mom said no more. So we took off, and here he comes running out. I think he had his underwear on. I know he had just his underwear on. If not, he might have been naked. I hope not. But he at least just had his underwear on. He come running out, jumped on the hood of the car, fell off onto the sidewalk, and we called him Sidewalk Man forever until we decided to call him Marky Foe. Like I said, I don't remember why we call him that. But yeah, that was the last. Was it? I think that was the last time I actually saw him, laying there on the sidewalk, screaming. He might have still had the screwdriver in his hand. I know you're like, how are you laughing this if he came after you with the screwdriver? Trust me, it's funny now. It wasn't funny then. But yeah, because my mom had been done with him anyway. She'd already found another boyfriend, Steve. That's another funny story. We met him one night. He was around the corner in his car, and we were told what car it was, but we wasn't really sure because it didn't kind of match the description that she gave. So we were walking up to everybody. Are you Steve? After 2 or 3 times, we finally found the right guy. But we ended up moving with them into my grandma's house, my granny's house, which, like I said before, some of the greatest times of my life happened at that house. During this time, though, it really wasn't, because I was in a weird phase. I should have done this research before. I was 14 years old, going on, well, this month I turned 15. Is that right? Yeah. Like I said, it's hard to figure out my birthday because it's literally a week before the end of the year. But I was going through this weird time, like, I don't know. Just, I guess I was extra rebellious. I know that for a fact. And, like I said, we were at my granny's house, and I'd had to, guys, I know it was the summer, because early fall, I'd started the new school. Actually, no, I take that back. I'd started the school for a week at Norwood. And then the next week we'd move, so it was early fall. But anyway, we started the school there by my grandma's house, and I didn't like it because I didn't know where to go. It was a whole new system. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but a whole different system of classes. And by the way, you hear the air conditioner kick on and off. Sorry for that. It's like 70 degrees out. I'm not burning up to do a podcast. But yeah, and I didn't like it. And I don't, like I said, the weird, whatever was going on in my head at the time, just dealing with all the stress of, yeah, I'm completely glad we were away from Marky Foe, but still trying to process everything. You know, my mom got a new boyfriend. Before I moved into Granny's, and actually on the weekends sometimes, just to give my granny some peace, because all of a sudden it goes from living by yourself, this is after my papa Jesse died, to having me, my mom, her boyfriend, and Travis, Clint, and Josh all there at once was a lot to take in. So we'd go to a hotel on the weekends. So it was a lot of moving around, and like I said, school really was not in my priorities at all. Like, I can't even say low on the list. It wasn't on there at all. So I would start skipping school. It's funny now, but it's not funny. Do not do this if you're happen to be in school and watching, or if you for some reason watch this with your kids. Don't tell them not to do this. I'm not advocating school and sit in the woods. I would either listen to music on my Walkman, or I would take some of my stepdad's baseball cards. Yes, I'm sorry. I'd put them back. I didn't steal them. I just borrowed them, basically, to give me something to read in the woods. And I would sit there in the woods because I would be able to walk home from school. There was like this field, and it led to these woods. It's not there. That whole land is, I've told before, it's changed. But I would walk through the woods, come back, and then sit there and either listen to music or read the baseball cards, or if I had a wrestling magazine, I would read that. These days I'd have my phone and be fine, but I had to entertain myself somehow, and then I'd walk home afterwards like nothing's wrong. And eventually, of course, that's going to catch up to you, no matter whether it's today. I mean, today they'd probably put an Amber Alert out on me if I was missing for 2 days from school. But back then, you know, eventually the principal started calling, and I knew he was going to call, so I would go home and I would take the phone off the hook. My granny found out. That was one of the only times I've seen her mad at me, when she found out I was doing that. And I felt so ashamed. Like, to have her yell at me was worse than any punishment you could think of. But trust me, I got punished. This story doesn't have a happy ending for me. But yeah, I would do stupid stuff like that. Like, and I broke into the dugout at the baseball field there at the. I hope the statute of limitations has gone on this, because but I got the bases. I think I took them back, but to make my own baseball field. I mean, just dumb stuff. And like I said, I didn't go unpunished from that. It ended up catching up with me big time. Had to go to court downtown Cincinnati, the big court. I ended up getting community service, where I ended up having to move desks in this old school downtown in the hot sun there was no electricity in the building. It was 90's. I had to take the bus to go to this every day. This was later on. I'm not going to get into that too much, but I had to shovel elephant poop at the zoo. And it wasn't no fun day at the zoo. But yeah, just a little bit about that time. Like I said, I'm not bragging about it. It's kind of funny to me now how stupid I would be. But like I said, I don't advocate that at all. And yeah, just a little bit of what was going on with me then. We'll get back to our format here. We're going to talk about sports. Of course, being December, baseball's over with. The NFL season actually ended then because they had fewer games then. Well, one fewer, but they also had, I think, a week or two less. I'm not sure. But the season ended and the playoffs had started. The Broncos were the best team in the AFC. And, of course, John Elway at that time. And the Vikings were the best team in the NFC. They'd only lost one game. They went 15-1. So, obviously, they were the favorites to win the whole thing. But they actually lost in the NFC Championship to the Atlanta Falcons in overtime. So, the Broncos beat the Falcons in the Super Bowl to win that year. Of course, like I said, that was John Elway's heyday. One of the greatest ever. Last time when I talked about baseball was, like I said, September '94. Baseball had ended. There was a big strike, and they've all voted to end the season early. Well, the same thing had happened to the NBA, which I've said before. I don't watch the NBA or the NHL, but I kind of give a little bit of information here in case you're a fan, because I don't want to, if you're a fan of those things, that's great. I don't watch them. But the NBA didn't have a season at that time. They had to start in January '99 due to a lockout. Again, greedy owners, greedy players. In the end of those things, it's greed all around, and the fans end up paying. At least they got a season that just started a little bit late. But the NHL was going then, and the leaders after that month were the New Jersey Devils and the Dallas Stars. And of course later in '99, because their seasons go from the end of a year to the beginning of the next. Well, not beginning, kind of middle. But they would end up, the Dallas Stars would end up beating the Buffalo Sabres to win the Stanley Cup. And I talk about NASCAR during this normally, but being December, NASCAR ended the month before. So now we're going to talk about movies. Again, with a lot of these lists, there's that word again, it's haunting me, lists. A lot of these lists, so much movies I never seen or really had much background with. And there's a lot that came out in December. You had Jack Frost, I know of the movie, Michael Keaton, I just had never really seen it. Star Trek Insurrection. I like Star Trek The New Generation, or The Next Generation. I like that series. Didn't really like anything else in the Star Trek universe, so I never seen that. Shakespeare in Love, obviously I never seen that. The Theory of Flight, never seen it. Patch Adams, I may have seen once, but I don't remember much about. I know it was Robin Williams. The Faculty, I know what it's about, but never seen it. Thin Red Line, I heard of it, but never seen it. But the one movie on here that I've seen is, you're like, oh, it's got to be a critical masterpiece, because last week's episode I talked about the Shawshank Redemption and how that was a critical masterpiece. This one isn't. This is Bride of Chucky. Now, if you see my top 50 horror list, horror movies, it didn't make the list, but Child's Play 1, 2, and 3 did. It was close to making the list. This is when it kind of started getting kind of away from the core thing. Of course, if you don't know what Bride of Chucky is, it's got Jennifer Tilly in it. She's supposedly the girlfriend of Charles Lee Ray, who takes over the good guy doll and becomes Chucky. But she pays this cop and then kills him to get the Chucky doll, because she's got this big book series, and was whatever subject it was for dummies, like Windows for dummies, or woodworking for dummies. But she had voodoo for dummies, and somehow it happened to have the exact spell to bring Chucky back, and he ends up getting captured by her because this ring she found that she thought he was going to propose to her with. Well, he just stole it, and he doesn't want nothing to do with her. So anyway, she locks him up. He gets out, electrocutes her, but transfers her soul somehow, because it was in that book too, into the Tiffany doll. So that's where the Tiffany from the Chucky series comes from. And they found another way that if they get this heart of Dumbala or whatever that crap it is, that's around the corpse of Charles Lee Ray, if they get that off of him, they can supposedly go into other bodies, and it's crazy. It's the first one where Chucky's all stitched up, because if you've seen Child's Play 3, at the end, he just literally hits the fan, this giant fan that chops his whole body up, so she sews him up. But it's a lot of fun, but it kind of gets away. It's the next one, Seed of Chucky, where they have a kid. That one just I thought the Chucky series was done after that. I'm glad they bounced back. But yeah, that's Bride of Chucky came out in December. Wonderful Christmas movie. That's why a lot of people say, "Oh, it's a Christmas movie. You should watch it during Christmas." But another one of from the few feedbacks I've seen, which I wish you guys would put a lot more feedback on there, just so I know which way. I mean, if you're not saying anything, I'm going to go the same way I'm going. If I'm doing something you don't like, let me know, and I'll, if people don't like it, I'm going to change it. I don't want to make videos just to hear myself talk. But one of the things I've been told that people really like is the Saturday morning cartoon lineup. So I picked one at random from the month. We're going to go December 26, 1998. Now, I got the list pulled up, but I hadn't looked at it because I want to kind of give reactions. Now, I'm going to give a little disclaimer here. Like I said, my head was, I wasn't, I was listening to the music I hadn't listened to before. I was doing things that I never thought I would do before, like blatantly skipping school and not caring about the consequences. So, obviously, I wasn't watching many Saturday morning cartoons. I don't know. I just wasn't all there. I still ain't. But, we're going to get into, so I might not know a lot of these. Is my point I was trying to make. We're going to start with ABC at 8 a.m. Disney's Hercules. I talked about this a few weeks ago. It's the series version of the movie. I love the Hercules movie, obviously. I think that came out in 97. I might be wrong. But this is Hercules as a teenager when he's in, school back in Greece. And just, it's a lot of fun. Obviously, it's not the same, voice and doesn't have Danny DeVito as his character in it, but yeah, that was definitely one I'd watched. I don't remember every episode of that show. It was just a cartoon. It was just one that was on, and I'd watch it whenever I could find it. Of course, ABC owned by Disney, so a lot of Disney stuff on here this time. 8:30 and 9, Disney's Doug. That was part of, if you remember it, the ABC Disney won the Saturday morning. That was their big kind of there's one. I just got an idea. TGI Friday. Who remembers that time period? The TGIF on, I think it was ABC. Yeah. Next week I'm going to have a TGIF on here. I'm going to start adding that. I just came up with that now. But if you remember that was the Friday night lineup of kids shows that all the teenagers were watching. Just like Thursday's Must-See TV, where everybody was watching ER and Law and Order and Seinfeld and all the Thursday shows. Well, this was Disney's Saturday morning attempt at it. One Saturday morning. I don't think it was as popular as the other things. But anyway, Disney's Doug was on. Talked about this before, how Disney bought that from Nickelodeon. And went pretty much the same. They didn't do too many changes to it. 9:30, Recess. Didn't really like it. 10 o'clock, Pepper Ann. Didn't really like it. Oh, here's our recurring theme, 10:30 and 11, the Bugs Bunny and Tweety Show. I say that if you've never seen this podcast before. There's hundreds of different Looney Tunes characters, spin-off shows that they just they take a couple characters and give it a name, and now you got a new cartoon out of it. It's kind of like an ongoing thing on here. But 11:30, 101 Dalmatians, the series. I don't remember this much. Obviously, I've seen the cartoon movies. Didn't care for the live-action movies, obviously. But the cartoons movies were good. Never seen the series. The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Never watched that. And the last one is Squiggly Vision. Never even heard of that. Let me know if you've heard of Squiggly Vision. We'll move to CBS. Franklin and Toll. Dumb Bunnies. Flying Rhino Junior High. Birds. Mythic Warriors, Guardians of the Legend. I've never heard of any of those. Franklin I may have heard of, if it's the one I'm thinking of. But I don't know, were these aimed at Nick Jr. age, preschool, kindergarten, elementary school type? Let me know if you've heard of those. Dumb Bunnies, Flying Rhino Junior High. Weird. Alright, on Fox, 8 a.m., the Mr. Potato Head Show. How do I not remember the Mr. Potato Head Show? I don't remember that. I'm going to look that up. 8:30, Power Rangers in Space. That was when it started getting to where I wasn't watching anymore. I might have watched the first season of Power Rangers in Space, but after that, I just couldn't deal with all the changes and they asked me about anything. Leprechaun, when it goes into space, it's done. Jason X went to space. crap. I mean, I still enjoy the movie for what it is, but it didn't make my top 50 horror, and almost all the Friday the 13th did. But yeah, Power Rangers in space was not a fan. Godzilla the series, I briefly remember that. It was a cartoon show, if I remember. Then at 9:30 they had Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I guess for people like me that wanted to see the good old Power Rangers. Mystic Knights of Tir-na-nog. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Never heard of it. Secret Files of the Spy Dogs. Never heard of it. Mad Jack the Pirate. Augie and the Cockroaches. What the? Okay, you can definitely tell I wasn't watching many Saturday morning cartoons at this time. Augie and the Cockroaches. Okay. NBC, they had more of a, like, teenage lineup, it looks like. They got Saved by the Bell, The New Class. Didn't really watch that much. I watched a lot of the Saved by the Bell through reruns. Enjoyed that. Hang Time, I remember that was a basketball series. I don't remember much about it other than it had to do with basketball. One World, City Guys, never heard of that. NBA Inside Stuff. See, this was, you had ABC was more towards the, you know, the kids, the Disney age kids, and then it looked like CBS was more towards preschoolers. I don't know what Fox was on with their Roaches show, but NBC looked like it's for teenagers. And now we're getting to the WB. Batman the Animated Series for an hour. That was my favorite of the superhero cartoons from the 90s. Batman the Animated Series. Can't say enough about that. Just the classic animation, you know, the square-jawed people, and, you know, just the bad guys they had on there. The Two-Face, the Riddler, the Penguin, Joker, of course. Harley Quinn Harley Quinn was known for woman that takes her clothes off. I don't know what she's known for. You can tell I don't watch those movies. But next is Superman animated series. Watch that all the time. Men in Black the series. I remember that. It was just, again, another one of those movie. Here's a movie. Let's make a cartoon tie-in. Obviously, it went with the theme. It's aliens, so you can do anything with that. Pinky, Elmira, and the Brain. I don't remember that. I remember Elmira from Animaniacs, always hugging and squeezing on Buster Bunny. But I didn't know she got added to the Pinky and the Brain. I'm going to have to look that up. That sounds hilarious. Oh, here we go again. Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries. What were they solving this week? And then Hysteria. I briefly remember that, but not enough to actually tell you what it was. But yeah, that's Saturday morning cartoons in 1998. If you go back to the last one, which was my last episode, was 4 years before this. It's a big difference in just 4 years. And of course, as I said, I was turning 15 then. I was like 10 or 11 in that one. 10, I think. If you look back at your life, you go from 10 to like 15. Well, 14. I'm turning 15. That is a huge difference. And just the things you watch, the things you do. Anyway, on that note, we're going to move it along here because we're probably taking forever. But we're going to go into music now. Number one, when I look at the music, I always look at the number ones of the month. And this one's a little bit different because it's the end of the year, so I got a couple awards. Not like I'm not going through a whole list of them, but number one all month in the Billboard Top 100. I've never heard of this before. I'm Your Angel by R. Kelly and Celine Dion. Yay. Last week we had to talk about P. Diddy's song. Now we got Mr. P himself, R. Kelly. The least I say about that idiot, the better. Let's move on to the music I was listening to. Had 4 number ones that month. Each one had its own week. Ty Herndon, It Must Be Love. Ty Herndon, one of those underrated artists you don't hear about anymore. So many of his songs. Really the one that my voice, my natural voice when I'm not trying to imitate everybody, sounds the most like when I'm singing. At least I think. If you don't know Ty Herndon, look some of his stuff up. Living in a Moment is probably his most famous, but It Must Be Love is a good song too. Faith Hill, Let Me Let Go. That was when she started going towards pop and really getting away from what she was, but it was still country enough for me. Vince Gill did the background vocals on that song. You get Vince Gill on any song and the quality immediately goes up. Brooks and Dunn, Husbands and Wives, kind of a different song for them. It was an old Roger Miller song from either the 60s or 70s. If you don't know Roger Miller, he has all kinds of funny songs, but even his regular songs, like, he just has a way of phrasing things. It's different than everybody else. It really made him stand out. But that was Husbands and Wives by Brooks and Dunn. And then the last one of the month and the year was Terry Clark. She was a Canadian artist. You're Easy on the Eyes. That's another one that she didn't get started till the end of the 90s, but I think she would have had a longer shelf life if she would have started earlier in the 90s. Because once it got to the 2000s, country radio started to change a whole lot. But we'll get a couple of those awards. The Grammy Album of the Year went to Dixie Chicks, Wide Open Spaces. And of course, they've had their controversy with the president and everything. I won't get into any of that, but Wide Open Spaces is a really good album. ACM and CMA Entertainer of the Year, those are two different award shows. Went to Garth Brooks, of course. I mean, it's the 90s. When you think of Entertainer of the Year, you think of all those. I'm going to have an episode where I speak more in depth about Garth Brooks. I don't want to gloss over it, but I know we don't have the 3 hours I need to talk about him right now. But yeah, he was winning award after award, but that Entertainer of the Year was almost always his, because not only could he sing, but the production of his shows really took country to the next level. A lot of people say it ruined it. I disagree 100% with that. If you listen to his music, it's country. Just because he's jumping around on stage and has fireworks and all this other stuff, that doesn't take away the music. But I'll get off my soapbox there. I'll defend him all year long. It's one of my many collections of his. But the ACM and CMA Song of the Year went to Steve Wariner, one of his friends, Holes in the Floor of Heaven. That was definitely a sad song, but that one was number one forever. That was Song of the Year for both awards. But yeah, if you know me, my two things, music and wrestling. So we'll go into wrestling and getting to the end of the year, of course. WrestleMania season right around the corner, but a couple pay-per-views in this month for WWF and WCW that were kind of both just, people left a bad taste in their mouths. Right in the middle of the Attitude Era when everything was hot, if it had been 95 and 96 these pay-per-views happened, it could have ruined the business. But WWF's In Your House Rock Bottom. So, of course, who's that centered on? The Rock did the month before had won that tournament where he turned heel and joined Vince and became the corporate champion. So December 13th is when this pay-per-view happened. It was in Canada. He defended his title against Mankind, and the referee stopped the match, but Vince got on the microphone and said since The Rock didn't tap out, he technically kept the title. So fans were not happy about that. And then the main event was lackluster too, from watching it and from what I've read. Stone Cold beat Undertaker in a Buried Alive match to earn a spot in the next month's Royal Rumble. For some reason, when Stone Cold and Undertaker had matches, they weren't the best. Like, I don't know if it's their styles clashed, but I mean, they've both gone on to say that, yeah, that they matches against each other. And it's not that they had anything against each other. It was just something was always off. That really sucks because they could have had a killer program, which I basically The Rock pretty much ended up getting Undertaker's spot as far as that rivalry with Stone Cold. Otherwise, it would have been Stone Cold Undertaker. It's just, I don't know. Something didn't click. But the next night on Raw, because I want to keep you up to date on the title changes, the Corporation, which was the team of the Big Boss Man and Ken Shamrock, would defeat the New Age Outlaws for the WWF Tag Team titles. And then the next week, speaking of those, two of those in that, the Road Dogg beat the Big Boss Man for the Hardcore title. This was he was only the third Hardcore champion in history. This is before you would see that title literally change hands 6 or 7 times in a night, before it became a complete joke. Although some of the stuff with Crash Holly was funny. But speaking of complete jokes, WCW Starrcade 98. The year before is the debacle with Sting and Hogan. I'll get into that when I get to December 97. But this one is known, first before we go into that, The day after this, Scott Steiner would defeat Conan for the WCW TV title on Nitro. But this was known as the one where Kevin Nash ended Goldberg's undefeated streak. There was a no disqualification match. Scott Hall interfered using a cattle prod. Supposedly Nash didn't know about it. But yeah, that ended Goldberg's undefeated streak, and that wasn't the only controversy. A couple weeks later on Nitro, January 4th, was the infamous finger poke of doom where Nash just got poked in the chest by Hogan and fell down and let Hogan win the world title, joining the Wolfpack and the NWO Black and White, because they were feuding at the time. It was... I don't look at it as some people do, where, oh, it killed the business, it killed... I just look at it as just a crappy storyline. Like, I don't think, in the end, it's what caused WCW to go out of business. It may have been part of it, but it's not as bad as I think some people put it. At least it's my viewing of it. Because I was at my granny's, so I was able to actually watch the Nitros and Raws at this time. And the pay-per-views. But, yeah. That was a very down time for WCW. And kind of the start of Eric Bischoff's end in the company. And then Vince Russo would come in, and unless Russo was already there, I might have my times off. I don't think he was yet. No, he wasn't there yet. Anyway, other notes in wrestling. Sabu would defeat Taz for the ECW World title on Hardcore TV. They didn't have a pay-per-view this month. They weren't doing monthly pay-per-views at the time. They were kind of bi-monthly, or maybe even every 3 months. Big month for Sabu, because Sabu and RVD would go on to defeat the Dudley Boys for the ECW Tag Team titles at ECW FMW Super Show in Japan. FMW is like one of those really hardcore promotions in Japan. But, of course, get back to the awards, the PWI awards, which were PWI's Pro Wrestling Illustrated. These awards were were they voted on by fans? I can't remember if these are fan-voted awards or if they're given out by the editors. I'm sure somebody will let me know in the comments. I can't remember. But Wrestler of the Year, then, there wasn't much controversy. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Who had a bigger 98 than Stone Cold Steve Austin? I mean, you could argue Goldberg. Goldberg was actually Rookie of the Year that year. But Match of the Year was the 1998 Hell in a Cell match between Mankind and Undertaker at King of the Ring. I'll go into more of that when I talk about that month, but that match was, I mean, everybody knows that match for the brutality. I'm going to move on to video games. A lot going on in the video game world. The current game systems were PlayStation 1 was still out, and it was the #1 selling console that year, 3 years in a row. Sega Dreamcast came out the month before this, so it was brand new. And I had so much fun with the Sega Dreamcast. I didn't get one till later in its run, when it was almost done. Just like I didn't get a Sega Genesis until they were out of print. Speaking of out of print, they weren't making them. Speaking of Sega game systems that were going away, the last game for Sega Saturn came out that month was Magic Knight Ray Earth. Never heard of it, but it was the last Sega Saturn game released. Like I said, Sega Dreamcast. I got one of those. I've had 3. The first one just broke on me. The second one, literally, I was playing ECW Hardcore Revolution. I was making a weird character where he was all blue. And I put all the blue all the way up, and it froze. And, you know, normally you could turn it off, or if it wouldn't turn off, unplug it. It would not work ever again. I plugged it back in, would not power on. Something about turning that character blue. So what did I do when I got a brand new one? The first thing I did, because I had to know, if I turn him blue again, does this break it? I would have felt so stupid if it had, but it didn't, luckily. I ended up having that for a long time. I think I gave it to Travis a few years ago. I doubt he still has it, but yeah, some of my greatest memories on that Sega Dreamcast. I won't get much time to talk about it because, like I said, it came out towards the end of this year. But one of the games released that year, or that month, was Sonic Adventure. Because, of course, like I said, the Dreamcast had just came out. That to me is one of my all-time favorite video games, but definitely my all-time favorite Sonic game. wasn't exactly open world. You could walk around in between missions and stuff, but you were kind of limited by space. But there's just so much about that. The different characters. You can be Sonic, Tails, Dig the Cat, where you go fishing. Not my favorite levels. Knuckles, where you dig for the emeralds. Not one of my favorite levels. Amy, the annoying girl that's in love with Sonic with her hammer. But fighting the Chaos Monster, and he would grow each time you got more emeralds. And Dr. Eggman and the Emerald Island. Just that whole game. The second one is great too. It's like they're neck and neck, but Sonic Adventure, the first one, is my all-time favorite. And it came out this month. And of course, I didn't have it then, but I beat that game 3 or 4 times. I've got it saved on my PS3. If I ever get another controller for that, I will definitely be playing that again. And also that month, the first Mario Party came out. I never played that. The one me and my brothers played all the time was Mario Party 2. And of course that leads me to the Nintendo system that was out at the time, Nintendo 64. We got one of those for Christmas. It might have even been this year we got that, 98. I'm pretty sure it was, because we didn't get it the year it came out. But but by the time Mario Party, of course, that classic party game where you roll the dice and then you do all these mini games, just a really fun game. Getting into my theme of being at the end of the year, the overall game of the year, there was a bunch of different magazines and websites, so there wasn't just one game of the year, because there was no like video game awards, where everybody recognized like the Grammys. But the overall pick by the majority of it was Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, which I've never really gotten into the Legends of Zelda's games. I know, shoot me. But the best-selling game of the year was Pokemon Red and Blue for Game Boy, which I didn't care for Pokemon at all. But it really shows you how popular that game is, that the #1 selling video game for the whole year is for a handheld game system that was obsolete even then. Game Boy. They were on Game Boy Color then. But for Game Boy, that was the #1 selling one. But we're going to kind of wind up the show. We're talking about the news. Kind of saved the best for last, not really, but the big thing going on in the news at this time was, for the first time, I don't know if it's the first time. Might have been the first time since Nixon. But the U.S. House voted to impeach President Clinton. All because he lied, saying that I did not have sexual relations with that woman. The whole Monica Lewinsky thing, the Oval Office, under the debt. All the jokes. Well, if you don't know all the jokes, go back and look at some of this stuff. Yeah, basically Clinton lied and can't have that as president, so they did impeach him, but the Senate would acquit him next month, so he ended up finishing his term out, and then 2000 George Bush would take over, and all that fun would begin. I don't get political on here. I thought Clinton did a good job as president. But I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not anything. It's just, I just remember times being better then. Obviously morally he's not right if he's cheating on his wife and lying about it, but one of the things I loved to watch was Jay Leno and his headlines. I would watch that with my grandpa all the time later on, but he would have so much material from the Bill Clinton stuff. Like, around this time is really when 98, 99, when Jay Leno became like his height of popularity, because all the Clinton stuff. He'd have a Clinton impersonator on there. But that was what was going on in the news. So getting ready to head into 99, the last year, and thank you guys for joining us here on the podcast. I know I've kind of been rambling like I always do, but hope you get a kind of a clear the different stuff going on. If you got any ideas of any kind of sections I should add to this, or anything I should be talking about that I'm not, or if you don't want me to talk about it, if I'm going on too long about wrestling, I'll try to shorten it for you. But just any feedback you want to give. We got it, like I said, that bonus episode should be coming out November 7th. It's my second bonus episode. It's with my wife. Is talking about the toys we played with as kids and teenagers. Like I said, if it's not on November 7th, just be looking for it. It'll be on there. But our next regular episode We're actually going to stay in the same year, but we're going to go back 11 months. So we're going to go to January 1998. See how different it was almost a year before. See how January started out and the whole year of 98 started out, and going to be talking about a bunch of different of my personal things on there. So just thank you guys for joining us, and again, feedback. I always want feedback because I want to know how to improve or what I'm doing right. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Tales from the 90s never die. In our hearts they testify. VCRs and mixtape spins, where every tale begins. Tales from the crypt, marathon.